The halls of the Quartermain mansion have witnessed countless dramatic moments throughout the years, but nothing could have prepared Drew Kane for the devastating news that would forever change his relationship with the family he so desperately sought to reclaim. The heartbreaking news arrives. Drew was still recovering from his recent shooting at General Hospital when Elizabeth Weber entered his room with the life-altering news. As Drew ranted about his ongoing conflicts with Danny and Jason, Elizabeth had to stop him mid-sentence with words no one wants to hear. Monica Quartermain had passed away peacefully in her sleep. The shock on Drew's face was unmistakable. Cameron Matheson, who portrays Drew, revealed the profound impact this news would have on his character. Monica's death is incredibly traumatizing for him, regardless of whether or not she raised him. She called him her son. He called her his mom. There's a really important bond there for Drew. Monica's passing came at a particularly poignant moment. She had spent her final day maintaining a cherished tradition, giving first day of school blessings to Scout, her beloved granddaughter. The irony wasn't lost on those close to the family. While Drew had been keeping Scout away from Monica as part of his vindictive campaign against the Quartermains, it was Scout who became one of Monica's final sources of joy. Drew's complex relationship with Monica. The relationship between Drew and Monica had been strained in recent months due to Drew's increasingly ruthless behavior. His affair with Willow Tate, his nephew Michael's wife, had deeply wounded Monica, as had his attempts to use his congressional power to destroy the Quartermain family crypt. These actions led Monica to support Tracy's decision to ban Drew from the mansion and forbid him from using the Quartermain name in his political campaign. Despite their recent estrangement, Drew and Monica had once shared a profound bond. Before his moral downfall, Drew had been someone Monica considered a true son, and she had always hoped he would find his way back to the man she knew he could be. The weight of knowing they would never have the chance to reconcile would prove devastating for Drew. Monica's final letters, a testament to love. In the aftermath of Monica's death, the family would discover that she had prepared for this moment with the foresight that had always characterized her approach to family matters. Monica had written individual letters to each family member, demonstrating her continued love and concern even in her final days. Drew's letter would prove to be particularly moving. Despite everything that had transpired between them, Monica had not forgotten the man Drew once was or the potential she still saw in him. In her letter, Monica would urge Drew to change his ways, to focus more on his family, and to remember the values that had once guided him. The letter would also reveal a stunning surprise. Monica had set aside a portion of her inheritance, specifically for Drew. This revelation would overwhelm Drew emotionally. The knowledge that Monica, even in her disappointment with his recent actions, had continued to think of him as family would move him to tears. It would force him to confront the reality that while he had been consumed with revenge and political ambition, Monica had maintained her faith in his capacity for redemption. The funeral dilemma. Drew's determination to attend Monica's funeral would create significant tension within the family. Despite his recent hospitalization and the family's clear disapproval of his behavior, Drew would insist on paying his respects to the woman who had called him son. However, his path to the memorial service would not be smooth. Tracy Quartermain, fiercely protective of Monica's memory and still furious about Drew's recent actions, would lead the charge in opposing his attendance. Tracy's position would be clear. Drew had disgraced the Quartermain name and had no right to insert himself into their moment of grief. Ned Quartermain would likely support his mother's stance, viewing Drew's potential presence as a disruption to what should be a solemn tribute to Monica. The family patriarch would worry about Drew using the funeral as an opportunity for publicity, or causing a scene that would detract from honoring Monica's memory. Jason Morgan, despite his own complicated feelings about Drew, would find himself in a difficult position. As the one delivering Monica's eulogy, Jason would want to focus on celebrating his mother's life rather than dealing with family drama. However, Jason would also understand Drew's need to say goodbye to the woman who had shown them both unconditional love. The battle for respect. Drew's insistence on attending the funeral would stem from more than just grief. It would represent his desperate attempt to reclaim some measure of respect within the family he had alienated. Having learned about Monica's bequest and her continued faith in him, Drew would feel compelled to honor her memory, regardless of the family's opposition. The conflict would intensify when family members suggested that Drew's presence would be inappropriate given his recent actions. Some would question whether his desire to attend was genuine or merely another political calculation designed to improve his public image. Tracy, in particular, would be unforgiving in her assessment of Drew's motives. Having watched Monica's health decline while dealing with the stress of Drew's betrayals, Tracy would view his funeral attendance as the ultimate act of selfishness. She would argue that Drew had forfeited his right to be considered family when he chose ambition over loyalty, a moment of reckoning. Despite the opposition he would face, Drew's attendance at Monica's funeral would mark a potential turning point in his character arc. Seeing the genuine grief of the family he had hurt and confronting the reality of Monica's death would force Drew to examine the path his life had taken. The reading of Monica's letter, with its message of love and hope for his redemption, would serve as a wake-up call for Drew. For the first time in months, he would be confronted with the consequences of his actions not through the lens of political maneuvering or personal vendetta, but through the eyes of someone who had loved him unconditionally. The funeral would also highlight the tragic irony of Drew's situation. While he had been fighting desperately to reclaim his place in the Quartermain legacy, he had been systematically destroying the relationships that actually mattered. Monica's death would represent the loss of his strongest advocate within the family, and his last real connection to the love and acceptance he had been seeking. The path forward. As Drew grappled with his grief and the weight of Monica's final message, the question would remain: would her death serve as the catalyst for genuine change, or would it drive him deeper into the darkness that had consumed him? Monica's letter had offered him a roadmap back to redemption, but the journey would require him to confront not only his recent actions, but the fundamental choices that had led him astray. The Quartermain family, meanwhile, would face their own reckoning. Monica's death would leave a void that could never be filled, and her final wishes regarding Drew would force them to consider whether forgiveness and family unity were possible. The funeral would serve not just as a goodbye to their beloved matriarch, but as a crossroads that would determine the future of the Quartermain legacy. In the end, Monica's death would prove to be more than just the end of an era. It would be a moment of truth for everyone who had been touched by her grace, wisdom, and unwavering belief in the power of family to overcome even the deepest divisions. Next, we will learn about the explosive developments that are about to rock Port Charles to its very foundation, as the Corinthos-Spencer dynasty faces an unprecedented storm of betrayal, deception, and life-altering revelations that could reshape the entire landscape of relationships we've come to know and love. The WSB deception that changes everything, the bombshell revelation surrounding Jack Brennan's calculated manipulation, is set to detonate with earth-shattering consequences that will leave Carly Spencer questioning everything she thought she knew about trust and protection. Behind closed doors at the WSB headquarters, classified documents reveal the extensive planning that went into recruiting Jocelyn Jacks as an undercover operative, with training sessions conducted in secrecy at abandoned warehouses along the Port Charles waterfront. Intelligence sources suggest that Joss has been engaging in dangerous surveillance missions, targeting international crime syndicates, placing her directly in the crosshairs of ruthless enemies who would stop at nothing to eliminate perceived threats to their operations. The web of lies extends far deeper than initially suspected, with Jack's recruitment strategy involving psychological profiling of the entire Spencer family to identify their vulnerabilities and leverage points. Confidential recordings obtained through covert channels indicate that Jack specifically targeted Carly's protective maternal instincts, using her love for Joss as a blind spot to execute his recruitment plan. The WSB's internal memos describe Joss as an ideal candidate due to family connections and street-smart survival skills inherited from both the Spencer and Corinthos lineages. Sonny's battle against Sidwell's empire, the escalating war between Sonny Corinthos and the dangerous Jen Sidwell, has reached a boiling point that threatens to consume everyone in their orbit. Intelligence reports from the underground indicate that Sidwell's organization has been systematically infiltrating Port Charles businesses, establishing money laundering operations through seemingly legitimate establishments, including Kelly's Diner, the Floating Rib, and several downtown boutiques. The sophisticated network involves corrupt city officials who have been receiving substantial payoffs in exchange for turning blind eyes to suspicious activities. Sonny's security team, led by seasoned operative Marcus Thompson, has intercepted communications revealing Sidwell's master plan to eliminate key figures in the Corinthos organization through coordinated attacks during major Port Charles events. The strategy involves creating maximum chaos and civilian casualties to send a message that no one is safe from Sidwell's reach. Underground sources confirm that Sidwell has enlisted the services of internationally trained mercenaries who specialize in making eliminations appear as tragic accidents, leaving no trace of criminal involvement. Michael's world crumbling under pressure. The methodical destruction of Michael Corinthos' carefully constructed life has reached critical mass, with Drew Kane's elaborate framing scheme revealing layers of corruption that extend throughout Port Charles' legal system. Court documents mysteriously altered in the Records Department show fabricated evidence, linking Michael to insider trading schemes involving ELQ's overseas investments. The forged paperwork includes falsified meeting notes, doctored financial statements, and manufactured email chains that paint a convincing picture of corporate malfeasance. Judge Eva Heron's suspicious death has sent shockwaves through the family court system, with autopsy results revealing traces of a rare toxin that suggests professional assassination rather than natural causes. The timing of her death, occurring just days before she was scheduled to review Willow's mental health evaluation, has raised serious questions about who benefits from the legal proceedings being thrown into chaos. Courthouse insiders report that Judge Heron had been receiving anonymous threats in the weeks leading up to her death, warning her against making certain custody decisions. Willow Tate's psychological evaluation reveals a complex web of trauma responses stemming from her childhood experiences with the Dawn of Day cult, compounded by recent stressors including Nina's manipulative behavior and the constant pressure of living under public scrutiny. Clinical psychologist Dr. Rebecca Martinez's confidential report details severe anxiety episodes, dissociative moments during high-stress situations, and an inability to maintain emotional regulation when separated from Wiley for extended periods. Monica's legacy and family bonds. The devastating loss of Monica Quartermain has created a void that extends far beyond the hospital walls, affecting every member of the extended Corinthos Spencer Morgan clan in ways that will redefine their connections to one another. Her final weeks were spent secretly updating her will to include specific provisions for each grandchild, establishing trust funds that come with conditions requiring family unity, and regular gatherings to maintain the Quartermain legacy. The reading of her will reveals personal letters addressed to each family member, containing wisdom and guidance tailored to their individual struggles and challenges. Monica's private journals, discovered in her office safe, contain detailed observations about the family dynamics and her concerns about the growing rifts between various clan members. Her entries specifically mention worries about Jason's emotional distance, Michael's increasing isolation, and her hope that Sonny and Carly would find their way back to supporting each other through life's inevitable storms. The journals also reveal her secret meetings with a private investigator, tasked with gathering information about threats against the family. Jason's heart torn between loyalties. Jason Morgan's emotional turmoil over Britt Westburn's unexpected return has created a domino effect that threatens to reshape the entire support structure of the extended family network. Britt's reappearance coincides with the emergence of new evidence suggesting that her presumed death was an elaborate cover orchestrated by the WSB to protect her from Cassadine family retribution. Medical records from a private Swiss clinic reveal that Britt underwent experimental treatment for her Huntington's disease, funded by an anonymous benefactor later identified as Victor Cassadine's hidden assets. The complexity of Jason's feelings becomes apparent through his behavior patterns, observed by family members and close friends. Restaurant staff at the Metro Court report seeing Jason and Britt engaged in intense conversations during late-night meetings, with body language suggesting unresolved romantic tension. Security footage from various locations around Port Charles shows Jason abandoning his typical protective routines to spend time addressing Britt's mysterious circumstances and potential ongoing dangers. The perfect storm drawing Sonny and Carly together. The convergence of multiple crises creates the ideal conditions for Sonny and Carly to rediscover their unbreakable bond forged through years of shared battles and mutual understanding. Carly's discovery of Jack's betrayal regarding Joss's WSB involvement will likely occur during a dramatic confrontation at the agency's downtown headquarters, with classified documents accidentally revealed during a heated argument about transparency and trust. The emotional devastation of realizing that her daughter has been placed in mortal danger without her knowledge will trigger a psychological crisis that requires immediate intervention from someone who truly understands the depths of maternal protective instincts. Sonny's unique position as both a father who has faced similar fears and a man with extensive experience navigating dangerous situations makes him the ideal source of support during Carly's darkest hour. His own guilt over past decisions that endangered their children creates a foundation of empathy that allows him to offer comfort without judgment. The shared experience of loving fiercely while living in a world where that love makes their children targets creates an unspoken understanding that transcends their romantic history, potential reunion or reinforced alliance. The question haunting longtime fans centers on whether this perfect storm of circumstances will reignite the passionate romance that once defined Sonny and Carly's relationship, or simply reinforce their evolution into something deeper and more enduring than traditional romantic love. Clinical relationship experts who have analyzed their interaction patterns over the years note that their connection transcends typical ex-spouse dynamics, resembling instead a partnership forged through shared trauma and mutual respect. Their ability to set aside personal differences when family members face genuine threats demonstrates a level of emotional maturity that could support either romantic reconciliation or platonic alliance. The psychological profiles of both characters suggest that their reunion would likely be gradual, built on renewed trust and shared purpose rather than impulsive passion. Carly's recent romantic disappointments have likely increased her appreciation for relationships based on genuine understanding and proven reliability, while Sonny's own growth through therapy and self-reflection has enhanced his capacity for emotional intimacy without the destructive patterns that previously undermined their marriage. Next, we will learn about the earth-shattering medical mystery that has Port Charles buzzing with speculation, as Britt Westburn's shocking return from the dead brings with it questions that could unravel everything we thought we knew about her terminal diagnosis and the shadowy forces that may have been manipulating her fate from the very beginning. The mysterious medical consultation, the tension-filled encounter between Britt Westburn and Dr. Lucas Jones in the sterile corridors of General Hospital has left medical staff and longtime residents questioning the very foundation of everything they believed about Britt's condition. During what appeared to be a routine follow-up examination, Lucas conducted comprehensive neurological assessments that should have revealed telltale signs of Huntington's disease progression, yet the results painted a completely different picture than anyone anticipated. His detailed examination included coordination tests, cognitive evaluations, and motor function assessments that typically show clear deterioration in patients with advanced stages of the hereditary disorder. The clinical findings were so unexpected that Lucas reportedly requested a second opinion from Dr. Terry Randolph, who independently confirmed the absence of any neurological symptoms consistent with Huntington's disease progression. Medical records from General Hospital's neurology department indicate that Britt's reflexes, coordination, and cognitive function all tested within completely normal ranges, contradicting years of documented medical history that painted a grim picture of inevitable decline. The inconsistencies became so pronounced that Lucas felt compelled to question whether they were dealing with an unprecedented case of symptom suppression or something far more sinister. The Croatian connection deepens. Britt's insistence on the necessity of her mysterious Croatian medications has raised red flags among medical professionals who understand the complex pharmacology involved in treating degenerative neurological conditions. The specialized treatment regimen she describes involves experimental compounds that allegedly slow or halt the progression of Huntington's disease. Yet no such breakthrough treatments exist in legitimate medical literature or clinical trials. Pharmaceutical experts consulted about these supposed medications express skepticism about their existence, suggesting that either Britt has been given access to cutting-edge experimental drugs unavailable to the general medical community, or she's been systematically deceived about what she's actually been taking. Intelligence gathered from Croatian medical facilities reveals a complex network of underground research laboratories operating outside the oversight of international health organizations. These facilities, allegedly funded by wealthy benefactors with connections to organized crime syndicates, conduct experimental procedures on unwilling subjects who believe they're receiving legitimate medical treatment. The possibility that Britt was held captive not just physically, but medically, subjected to a psychological manipulation campaign designed to make her believe in her continued illness, presents a chilling scenario that extends far beyond simple kidnapping. The blackmail theory unfolds. The emerging theory that Britt may be maintaining her illness facade under duress opens up disturbing possibilities about who might possess the leverage to control someone with her intelligence and medical expertise. Investigative sources suggest that her captors may have fabricated evidence of her continued illness, while simultaneously threatening the lives of her loved ones. including her mother Liesl Obrecht and her extended family connections throughout Port Charles. The psychological warfare involved in convincing a brilliant doctor that she's terminally ill when she's actually healthy represents a level of sophisticated manipulation that points to adversaries with extensive resources and medical knowledge. The timing of her return coincides with several significant developments in Port Charles' criminal underworld, including the escalating conflict between Sonny Corinthos and Jen Sidwell's organization. Intelligence analysts theorize that Britt's forced participation in this medical charade may be connected to her potential value as a bargaining chip or source of leverage against powerful figures in the community. Her medical expertise and family connections make her an ideal candidate for manipulation by criminal organizations seeking to establish footholds in Port Charles' legitimate business community. The Cassadine legacy returns. The mysterious note signed with a simple C has reignited speculation about the possible return of various Cassadine family members who have previously been presumed dead, only to resurface at crucial moments in Port Charles' history. The Cassadine family's long-standing tradition of elaborate deception, staged deaths, and psychological manipulation makes them prime suspects in any scheme involving medical fraud and identity manipulation. Helena Cassadine's particular expertise in mind control and psychological warfare, combined with the family's vast financial resources, would provide the perfect foundation for the type of long-term deception that Britt appears to be experiencing. Victor Cassadine's previous involvement with experimental medical procedures and his connections to international criminal networks suggest that he could have orchestrated Britt's captivity and subsequent medical manipulation from beyond the grave, or perhaps as part of an elaborate scheme to fake his own death while continuing his nefarious activities. The possibility that Valentin Cassadine is secretly orchestrating events from behind the scenes, using his WSB connections and financial resources to manipulate multiple storylines simultaneously, adds another layer of complexity to an already intricate web of deception and betrayal. Nathan's return and family secrets. The shocking revelation that Nathan West may also have survived his apparent death creates parallel questions about whether the Westbourne Reeves family has been targeted by a coordinated campaign of deception designed to manipulate their actions and loyalties. If Nathan's death was also staged, it suggests that someone with considerable resources and planning capabilities has been orchestrating a long-term scheme involving multiple family members over an extended period. The psychological impact of believing that loved ones are dead or dying while they're actually alive and being controlled by outside forces represents a level of emotional manipulation that goes far beyond typical criminal schemes. Medical records from the night of Nathan's supposed death reveal several inconsistencies that were overlooked during the initial investigation, including discrepancies in blood type documentation and unusual circumstances surrounding the organ donation process. Hospital staff members who were present that night report feeling pressured to expedite certain procedures and limit access to the body, suggesting that powerful forces were working behind the scenes to ensure that questions about Nathan's death would not be thoroughly investigated. The ripple effects begin as word of Britt's questionable medical status begins to circulate through Port Charles' tight-knit community. The implications extend far beyond her personal situation to affect numerous ongoing storylines and relationships throughout the town. Jason Morgan's renewed emotional investment in Britt's well-being could be completely transformed if he learns that her terminal diagnosis was fabricated, potentially freeing him from the guilt and hesitation that has prevented him from fully committing to their relationship. The psychological relief of discovering that someone he cares deeply about is not facing imminent death could fundamentally alter his approach to their connection and his willingness to prioritize personal happiness over professional obligations. Liesl Obrecht's reaction to learning that her daughter may have been systematically deceived and manipulated will likely trigger a maternal fury that could have far-reaching consequences for whoever is responsible for the elaborate deception. Her unique combination of medical expertise, criminal connections, and fierce protective instincts makes her a formidable adversary for anyone who has harmed her family. The possibility that she may have been unknowingly complicit in maintaining Britt's false diagnosis adds another layer of emotional complexity that could drive her to extreme measures in seeking justice and revenge. The investigation intensifies. The mounting evidence of medical fraud and psychological manipulation has attracted the attention of various law enforcement agencies and criminal organizations operating in and around Port Charles. The WSB's potential involvement in either orchestrating or covering up Brit's situation creates jurisdictional complications that could prevent local authorities from conducting thorough investigations. The possibility that international criminal syndicates with connections to pharmaceutical companies or medical research facilities may be involved adds another layer of complexity that requires specialized investigative resources and expertise. As the truth about Brit's condition continues to unravel, the reverberations will undoubtedly affect every corner of Port Charles, challenging long-held assumptions about truth, trust, and the lengths to which powerful people will go to manipulate and control those around them for their own mysterious purposes.